come to understand what's happening, then it should be easy to navigate. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, yes. I did download, and I downloaded a book, audiobook, and when I went to open it, it said it wasn't adaptable for my device or something. So it actually was an ebook, but it did have the headphones. So that kind of confused me a little bit. But
no, that's really strange. Especially, are you on an iPhone?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that. I wonder if it's an issue with that particular title.
Could be. But, you know, and I was like amazed to see that you have Barack Obama's like new book. That's, yeah, just a good, I thought the app was easy to navigate and use, so.
Good. Well, and if I don't, hi Jill, by the way, good morning. You're welcome into our conversation. Jump in.
Yeah, unmute, that's fine. Looks like Angela.
Kate, I can also, if you would be willing to share my contact information.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, if any of the libraries want to demo this, and I'll mention that they can reach out to me, and I can get demo login credentials for any library. And it's nice to have those individually. So if, like, rather than one per library, it's nice if each person can have one, because the app will remember reading positions, and it'll remember a history. As a matter of fact, it syncs between devices. So if you would go try that on another device, it'll ask you if you want to continue where you left off, because it'll remember from the other devices. So it's really fun. In addition, then you can listen and read the things you want to read without having to share that with your peers if you didn't want to do that.
So let's see here. So there's Billy Joe. Billy Joe, I know, had some questions too, so we can address hers at the end. But hi, Billy Joe.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear? I know I had spoken to Billy Joe just briefly, and she mentioned that she was going to be on this call. So that was awesome. Glad to see that.
So we are at 10:04. So what if we just wait one more minute and we'll see if anybody else comes in. I'm a little disappointed there aren't more people, but again, I have to say some are probably at that mini conference. So
yeah. Well, I'm happy to have you share this. Hopefully it will go well. If not, I might have to say, Kate. Actually, this is really funny, but it's not funny. When I just started, a cooperative director asked if it would be okay to record the session, which she did. And it was so bad. It was so bad. I literally couldn't listen to it. I was laughing at myself so hard. And this was over a year ago, and I was new to cloudLibrary, didn't really understand the technology or a lot of the conversation that well. And so whenever I'm crabby or need a laugh, all I have to do is listen to that, and literally I break out laughing. It's so bad and so sad that the library has had to listen to that. Anyways, hopefully I've improved since then.
I'm sure you have. Of course, we've all had to adapt to doing it this way, right? And not in person. So
yeah, I really like it. I think that it's very personable as long as people put their cameras on. It's a little bit difficult if you're speaking to a blank screen and people don't turn their cameras on. And of course, it's nice to meet with people in person, but this is a great way to get a message, distributed quickly. And it's also the great equalizer. I've found that in various positions, whether you're in more of a common position or like a real executive position, everybody has cats and kids, and and everybody sneezes, and I feel like it makes us all a little bit more, there's more unity in terms of how we communicate with one another. And especially because a lot of people are not so technical. And so when people make mistakes, then it allows you to feel like it's okay for you to make a mistake too, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Well, why don't we get started? Thank you guys for coming. I know there's just 4 of you, so if you want to unmute, you can. Feel free to chime in during the presentation, ask questions at any time. There will be time at the end as well. You can also use the chat, as I know you guys are all aware about that. But Amy Peterson is here, and she is going to chat with us about cloudLibrary, and I will let you take it away, Amy.
Great. Well, thank you so much for attending the meeting on cloudLibrary from Bibliotheca. I'm very excited about our platform, and really the cool thing to me about cloudLibrary is that there's no other vendor that has a platform like ours. And so it works very uniquely. It was designed at 3M, and the developers still work with the company, as do a lot of masters of library science. So the company is full of techies and librarians, and that's really helpful with this app because we're really responsive to help you onboard, train, help your patrons, and it's a great solution for a couple of things that are hot buttons right now. Number one is that there's a lot of demand on digital collections, and cloudLibrary resolves the issue of high hold times. And we also expand our collection in several ways so that as an individual library, you don't have to be strained in your budget with a lot of purchasing. And that has to do with how we share material. And so those are some of the things I'm going to talk about today. Hopefully you can all see my screen and you can see my slides advance. Oops. So the number one thing really driving digital right now, besides COVID, is mobile trends. We know that screen time is up, digital reading is up, audiobook listening is up. That's really the largest segment of growth at the library. Prior to COVID, we knew that this was coming. And so we, as a library solutions company, our whole message to libraries was how can we help the library pivot to help you be more responsive in your community to patrons. With audio as the most expensive portion of this digital, and with the shift of people listening to more material, digitally interacting with the library because of COVID, the question for the library is how are we going to keep up with the demand? Generally, the count of patrons at the library is staying pretty consistent, but we see this huge demand now in digital collections. When the COVID lockdown hit, in 10 days at cloudLibrary, we circed what we had circed the entire year last year. One of the cool statistics that I like is that last year our circs were up 53%, but our hold times were only up 3%. So what we're going to talk about here is this shift. The other thing that's really cool is that with patrons interacting more digitally with the library now, we know that these habits probably will not go back to the way they were. As you know, and as I know, as soon as you get more functionality through an app, your tendency is to want to continue that because of the convenience, it's easy. And so with this shift, we're probably not going to go backward. We're probably going to continue to move in this direction. So cloudLibrary was built in Minnesota. We went to the local libraries to find out what it is that libraries were really concerned about. There's 3 modules to cloudLibrary, and we're going to talk about 2 of them today. One interacts with self-checks at the library. That's called our Assist module. The checkout module allows for a checkout on a smartphone. I'm going to spend a few minutes on that because that's really neat. It's also great for small libraries that don't have self-checks. A patron can actually use their smartphone to check out a book at the library. And then digital content is the one that we're going to focus on, the ebooks and the e-audiobooks. So when we went to the library, these are the things we asked, this is what we got back from the libraries that we talked to. The top concerns were, what did I borrow? When do I need to bring it back? And where is my library card? So when we put this app together, one of the my favorite things is having a virtual library card on your phone. I'm going to move to this slide a little bit, and hopefully you can see my cursor. If I click in the corner of the card will flip, and the library card number is on the back. Here you can see view cards. Our app allows for a variety of cards on the phone. It's interesting that this looks like just a feature, but our feedback from libraries is that this feature is awesome for families. I know that I always have difficulty finding my library card, but we always have our smartphone with us. The app allows for a patron to personalize the app with genres, colors. You can actually even upload your own photo onto the card. And believe it or not, statistically, people like to customize their own apps. And if they're able to do that, it's stickier and they have a more positive experience. So the Cloud Library content module is the digital ebooks and e-audiobooks. I'm not going to spend a great deal of time in the app because of this more broad conversation, but if the library is interested in doing their own demo, if you want to get a demo credential for yourself or for your library, I'm able to provide credentials for you to do that, so please reach out. Make sure that each person gets their own, because it's really fun to work in the app. The app will remember your reading position on various devices, and it will also sync between devices. So if you start reading a title, you want to come back to it, you're going to have your own personalization within the app. One of the neat things about this app is that it's simple to get started. There's basically 4 steps. You get to select a language. We have just short of 100 languages in the app. The country, your state, and library. And then we just ask for a library card and a PIN number. So we don't do anything with your patron data. We allow you to do that at the library level, and then we'll just peel off the information from the ILS that we need, and we allow you to do that at the library level. The app is available on basically all devices, specifically all of these devices, with one caveat, and that is the old e-ink Kindle Paperwhite. There's a few reasons why we don't have that module, and I'd like to talk about, because the readers on these devices, there's not very many of them, but they tend to be very committed to the library, and they're in the library a lot. That device requires some relationship with Amazon, and Amazon is able to take patron data. We feel like that is somewhat in violation of the code of library ethics and patron privacy. In addition, that device is rather old and the readership is declining. We also know that almost 100% of the people that read on those devices have another device that they could read of Cloud Library. Also, e-audio is the largest segment of growth, as I said, and that Paperwhite is actually a reader. So what we find is through Google Analytics, you can actually analyze usage on that device. And when we have worked with very large library systems to dig deeper into those circs, we find out that there's almost none of those circs that we couldn't do on all the other devices. But again, they can be committed library patrons. So I like to bring this up because we're going to work very personally with the library. We want to have a good relationship with you and your patrons. We want to make sure that everyone at the library knows how to use Cloud Library, is excited about it, and can talk to the patrons about, hey, this is why we'd like you to download Cloud Library. You'll love this. And that really helps. So we're going to be in partnership with the library. Our onboarding costs are not high compared to our competition or the other vendors out there. So our whole goal is to have a great relationship with each library so that your patrons love it, they're circing, and you're building a collection at the library and able to share with the collections that I'll talk about in a minute. I'm getting ahead of myself here.
Amy?
Yes.
I just want to mention that the Paperwhite is an issue. And I've heard from a couple libraries that is a problem. The folks that tend to use the Paperwhite maybe, are elderly, and they may not have another device. and they know that device, and that's the device they like. I also know that there was a time, I think it was with KDL, that they went with cloudLibrary and then had a lot of bad feedback from patrons about that. And so just so you know, it's...
You know, I'm glad you brought that up, Kate. I do actually know that, and that's why I built that into the presentation. So thank you for saying that. Here's the one thing about that, because it's true, and we don't support that device. The item is, when we've looked at statistically this scenario, what we find is that it is a big deal and it is a concern to a very small percentage of patrons, but they happen to be vocal and you have relationships with them and they're in the library a lot. So in this presentation, my hope is that 98% of the patrons will have the advantages of the things of cloudLibrary, despite the disadvantage for a very small proportion of patrons. So I appreciate the feedback, and I know this, and as a matter of fact, I work with the whole system in Michigan that decided not to go with us because of that. So it is a thing. We actually haven't been invited to that party by Amazon. So it's not necessarily that we don't want to have that. We actually just don't have it. However, like we just did a whole, a very large state RFP where we responded and we looked into the statistics specifically because of this. And really we found that it wasn't 30%, which is what they were told or what Overdrive had presented. It was a very small percentage. And then of those percentages, when we broke it down, we found that we actually came to zero. We came to 0% that we found that we couldn't have accommodated in a different way. So yeah, so it is a thing, but we hope that you will consider the advantages brought to the larger community, many of whom are communicating with the library and interacting with the library from afar. They're actually not in the library, they're not maybe talking to you, but they are frustrated with hold times or they can't find the material they're looking for. And really that's kind of that's the population that our solution works for, you know. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for bringing it up. We wouldn't want to get into a relationship with the library that was really concerned about this, because at this point we really can't do anything about it. I only to say that, you know, we have overcome that issue with many libraries. So at Bibliotheca, we have a lot of librarians, which is fabulous. I'm not one, I wish I was. But the cool thing for you is that we can bring the relationship with the publishers and certainly the curation of a lot of collections to the library, so that we can actually present these to you as something that you may be interested in having at the library without you having to do a lot of the legwork. We actually have a new feature where it's easy to find what is the top selling title that your library doesn't own, and some things like that, so that if you're buying titles at your library, you're the purchaser, we actually present a lot of resources for you so that you don't feel on your own, and then so that's not so time consuming for you. The new reader that we're bringing to the market is called Cirrus. This is what came out in August, and Kate and I talked a little bit about this. This is very fun to try. We bring some enhancements to the digital children's content, to the subject of inclusivity, and I'll talk about that. Basically, the speed and the patron interaction is enhanced. My favorite feature here is scroll mode. That's what we're showing on the screen. We're the only vendor that has this right now. Basically, it allows you to scroll as you would like in social media. When you come to the end of the chapter, that is when you swipe to get to the next chapter. I find that reading in this mode helps me read faster and stay attuned to the book. When I do the page turn, even though it's a slight brain break, it's an opportunity to go get popcorn for me. I mean, is just a break. And I love this because I can get to the end of the chapter quickly. Another neat aspect of this new Cirrus app is the open dyslexic or dyslexic font. So this is the inclusivity factor, a very fun font to read in. If there's any visual processing problems in reading, there's that heavy ink on the bottom that helps you kind of stay aligned in the line. And then in the children's area, we upgraded our graphics and basically added some neat functionality here. On this page, you can see the red girl's word. As the narrator is reading, the text progresses in a color print. This is able to be rendered in 1 or 2 pages. And of course, the volume can be turned on or off if there's a reader present. We'll talk a little bit more about the app in a minute, but I wanted to go to some of the things that differentiate cloudLibrary from the other vendors, one of which is the Cloud Link. And what this is like a digital interlibrary loan. So with cloudLibrary, you're able to purchase titles and have ownership of the titles that your library is interested in purchasing. The way we extend a collection is by tapping into this shared collection of material. So there's a list of libraries in Michigan that I'll get to in a couple of slides. This basically shows how the sharing is done. So each library owns their own titles and their patrons have priority on that title. They can place holds and will always be given preference to that title. However, if a book is not being used, it becomes available to patrons in the Cloud Link throughout the state of Michigan. And your patrons can go and borrow that digital book. This is where these circs really improve, because there's so much material available and the wait times and the hold times are reduced. So here are the libraries in Michigan right now. I'm also in communication with several other libraries, including the largest one is Detroit Public Library. And I think there's a possibility that they might be transferring their entire collection to cloudLibrary. I'd like to bring them up as an example because my contact there, her name is Christine. She has a specific kind of genre and interest in purchasing, and in her case, it is African-American titles or urban titles. And she really wants those titles available for her patrons. But of course, as a library, you can't just purchase in one category, right? Well, with cloudLibrary, you really can do that because you can use the aspect of the Cloud Link and then also the other aspect that I'll talk about in a minute, which is a level of pay per use to extend your collection and balance the collection while also really giving your patrons preference and priority. Here's one example. Illinois is also part of, is one of the states that I work in. And you can see after the start of cloud linking, literally statistics go up the next month in circs. In Denton, Texas is one example my peers just brought on a few months ago. They went from 11,000 circs to 17,000 in 1 month. Here's 2 different systems, and the publishers state the boundaries of CloudLink. And the reason they do that is because they want you to share some books, but they don't want you to share too much. So they'll allow each state to share material, but the boundary is by the state. So in this state, we are in, this is actually Ontario. And what this bar graph shows is if you look at the red, that is the amount of circs done on the library's owned collection. If you look at the yellow bar, that is your patron's circs on the cloud-linked collection. So you can see that in all of these libraries, there was an advantage to being cloud-linked, and actually in almost every case, there were more circs on the cloud link than they were on the owned collection. That happens also here in California. The other thing of note is that whether you are a smaller library or a larger library, the advantages are still strong with the CloudLink. And you mentioned KDL. KDL was they were a really strong drain actually on the Michigan CloudLink, because their population was so large and they searched so heavily on the CloudLink that we actually brought a lot to their patrons, more so than they purchased and brought to their own patrons, if that makes sense. The other level we bring is pay per use. So this is a pay per search scenario that the library can choose to turn on or off. It's part of our platform. You don't have to use it, but in almost every case, every library uses it. And this is why. Even if you don't have a large budget, you're able to set the parameters for many things in pay per use that are important to you. Primarily the cost. And you can see of 170,000 titles, let's look here at the audiobook collection. At $3 per circ, 84% of that collection is available. So when your patron goes to search for a title, actually, how our software works is we're going to look to see if you own the title first, because you've already paid for it. If you own the title, that will be the book that satisfies that search. If you don't own the title, our software will look in the CloudLink of Michigan to see if anyone in the CloudLink owns that title. If it's not in the CloudLink, which is that $1 million, I didn't talk about that on the slide, but it's basically over $1 million worth of content. If we don't find it in the CloudLink, we're going to go to this pay per use collection. So at $3 and under, about 84% of this collection is available. If you look over here on the ebook collection, 88% is available at $3 or under. So let's just guess and say that's 130,000 titles. So your patron finds that book. They don't know what's happening behind the scenes. They just go, great, cool, yep, I'm gonna borrow that, I'm gonna read it. And then you would be charged that $3 cost. The cool thing is look at how much is available at 99 cents and below. Almost 30% of the audiobook collection and 44% of ebook collection. So a lot of my small libraries, I kind of keep an eye on the ones that I've brought onto cloudLibrary because I would be the account manager for the first year. It's so fun to see a smaller library just go up by $2 or $3 and basically budget maybe $25 for ebooks and $25 a month for e-audiobooks and have 130,000 more titles available for patrons.
Can I ask a question, Amy?
Yeah.
So there's basically three components to cloudLibrary, right? So what they purchase, what a library can purchase, and then that's their collection. And then the CloudLink where they can share. And then the pay per use. Do you have to have pay per use? Okay. So say you don't have pay per use. And I'm a patron and I go in and I'm looking for a title and it's not in my library that they purchased it and it's not available in CloudLink. As the patron, that's the end of the road, right?
Yeah, it'll just say search unsuccessful or title not found.
Is there like an alert or a message or something that would go to the library and say, hey, you've had 5 patrons this past week that were interested in the title and it's not available. Would you consider buying it or would you consider doing pay per use? I mean, is there something like that to give the library an alert?
That's a really good question to see if there's a history of searched titles. I will check. I don't know the answer to that actually. What I do know is that the patron can make up to 5 suggestions. And if you buy the title, the suggestion will automatically satisfy the patron's request. And then it will open up them to have that one more suggestion. So the most they can make is 5. If you purchase the title, the whole the search will present that title into their app for them to borrow.
Thank you.
And you are absolutely right in in your synopsis. this is a hedge against cost. And this is why cloudLibrary can operate so efficiently, and why libraries really like our solution. And that's because if you purchase a title that you want for your patrons and your demographics and specific to your library, that's great. You own that title. And by the way, if you purchase material, whether whatever platform you're in, you own that title with the publisher. And it can be moved. In our case, we've done over 250 content transfers in 40 countries. We do it at no cost. And it's something we help you to do in order for you to have that title that you own in a cloudLibrary collection.
So sorry, another question.
Nope.
Sorry. So you say you own it. You own it. There's no metered access. It's all.
It stays the same. So whatever, if it's a numbered meter or a calendar meter, that would transfer along with the title. And then that brings up another good point, and that is like, let's say it's a numerically metered title. If somebody in the cloud link would use that book, that's a metered use. However, if we go back to these graphs, you can see, again, most of the circs are going into the cloud link. So you should not be afraid of buying a title that's going to be exhausted by the cloud link, because likewise, your patrons are going to have the advantage of all the metered material in the cloud. What we find is when we stack these together, whether the search is satisfied from something you own or from the cloud link or from the pay-per-use collection, our costs are much lower than, for example, Hoopla is a very well-liked platform. It's also extremely expensive. So that's that. Here's an example of utilizing all of those three tiers and what it looks like numerically. This is over a 4-year period of time. I'm sorry that my statistics can't represent this year, because it's going to be really exciting next year when we can add what happened in 2020. But here you can see the circs exponentially increasing. Now this is an aggregate amount of libraries. So as a whole, here are the circs increasing, and then the holds bar is yellow at the bottom, and you can see it's almost consistent and being maintained across the growth. I know that one of the concerns that I hear in talking to libraries across the country is the frustration with hold times. And the concern to that is, with budgets, how does the library keep up with this demand? Because it's very hard to satisfy. And that's where this solution is very, very helpful.
Amy, another question, sorry. So I buy a title for my library and say it's metered 24 checkouts or whatever. Can I just keep that back in my collection, or does it automatically go to the cloud?
If you are cloud linked, it's going to work according to how our software moves material. Of note is that if you buy a title, if your patrons want to read it, they always get priority. If somebody was not reading that title and it ended up at Canton Public Library and your patron comes in and puts a hold on it, it's going to come back to your patron first. So your patrons always have priority. The link people can't even see it unless it's available. So you can't hold a title on another library's collection. So what happens innately is that your patron always has priority on your titles. And that's the same with other libraries. So it protects your ownership and your investment and your patrons. It really only becomes like interlibrary loan in a physical way, really only becomes available if no one's using it. And that's the beauty of it, because there's no books sitting around. There's a lot of books moving around based on that. No, I really appreciate your questions. And please stop me if you have questions, because it helps me know what your concerns are and It gives you a break from having to listen to me. So a cool thing about cloudLibrary is that your logo will always be on and in the app. We don't put logos of consortiums or anything else. So when your patron comes into your app, cloudLibrary app, they're going to see your library and your logo, and they feel at home there because they know that, that they're where they want to be. We can include Twitter feeds, and we also have messaging in the app. Now this is really cool, especially this year. It's been highly used because you can message in the purchasing tool. We call it CAT, the content acquisition tool. It's called Marketplace and Overdrive. But when you're in the back side in the library, you can message to patrons, and this is great during COVID when hours are changing. I know in Michigan, same as Minnesota, tomorrow night we're going back to a major lockdown. No restaurants, takeout only, no gyms, you know, the theaters and bowling alleys, everything else is shutting down. I actually don't know what's happening at my library. This is interesting. I just thought of this. I'm a power user at the library. I love my library. I have no idea what they're doing. So this would allow my library, which actually has cloudLibrary, to send a message to me and let me know, you know, what's going on. Are you still doing curbside pickup? What are the hours? That kind of thing. So with the advent of COVID, we have had this spike of interest in self-service and contactless service. The statistics here in the screen basically are pre-COVID, and they suggest that consumers are interested in a self-service experience. So libraries are kind of catching up to Target, to gas stations, to other aspects of business that are doing self-service. And we have a solution in cloudLibrary. Now, this is available whether you do digital content with us or not. So these two modules of cloudLibrary can be independent of one another. But this allows for a simple barcode scan on a cell phone or smartphone. So what I would do is go to my cloudLibrary app and open it up. I would choose the checkout option. It opens the camera of my smartphone. I scan the barcode on a book, and that book is set right into the digital receipt of cloudLibrary. If you have digital content with us, it will sit side by side. If you did not have digital content with us and only had this, it would go into the app. And actually, I'm getting ahead of myself again. This screen shows if you have security at the library, that there's one other step, and that is to release the security. If not, basically, the app is going to show that you checked out this print book right here. So now we've tapped the ILS at the library, and now the app is going to function for digital material and physical material. And here's where we're gonna look a little bit closer into the app. You can see here, because we're not gonna do a demo, that basically across the top and the bottom of the app are the function buttons that allow us to see history, holds. Along the bottom, it's gonna allow me to go to my account, view my library cards. And in that case, it's pretty intuitive when you use this to see, for example, how you can mark your action items and do other things in this app. For example, I have 4 children, but they're all older now. So I can, in my app, I can move the featured shelves around so that I can see the material that's interesting to me. So I don't really need to see kids' material right now. I like that within the app, you can do a lot of personalization so that when I go into the app, I see the things that I'm interested in. Right here is the home screen. It shows me what I've borrowed, what is due, an account balance. If you turn on recommendations, this is, we work with Novelist, so that's an add-on. And here you can see that we have an events calendar as well. The notifications can be turned on or off, just as other apps. This is patron preference, basically. This is my favorite feature. If you would do both with us, which is the digital content as well as the checkout module, this portion of the app allows me to organize my physical items. So in my house, 4 kids, tons of books. I go back to the library. Oh shoot, where's the receipt? Do we have everything? This allows me electronically to go into my app. If the book is in the book bag, I can press the packet button. Now I can look into my app where it's Thursday, it's library day. I can see that we need to find a few more titles. So I can send the kids back to their various bedrooms to hunt for whatever books we're missing. So I'm just going to review this because this can be complicated. If you have digital ebooks and audiobooks with us, there's a certain amount of functionality within the app, and you're probably familiar with that from an app that you might read in, such as Overdrive or Access 360. It's going to give you all the digital material, ebooks and audiobooks. There's search features, there's organizational features, multiple library cards, and account information about your account and about the library. If I also choose the checkout module, we now have information from the ILS so that we can manage both within the app, the digital material and also the physical content from the library. So now my app becomes this fully integrated library app. It's the only thing I need to look at because I can go in there to find out what my account balance is, what books are due, and also deal with my digital material as well. One new addition we have is Comics Plus. We're the only vendor now that has this. This is an add-on. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but it's so fun. So I want to mention that it's available as an add-on to cloudLibrary. Comics Plus is a separate app right now, and we're always going to keep it separate. If you wanted to just come on with us for Comics Plus, you could do that. We're going to have deeper integration with Comics Plus at the turn of the year so that this material would be within the cloudLibrary, but we'll always support the app because it's a really nice app. This is neat because it's unlimited access, simultaneous use. I need to go back to pay-per-use for a minute because I forgot to mention this. That pay-per-use level is also simultaneous use, always available. However, if your budget is maxed, like say you only put $25 towards ebooks and audiobooks, if that budget gets maxed, your patron will see a hold, and it will be held until the next month when your budget renews. So from the patron, again, all of that movement is really invisible. And if they would search a title that's available in pay-per-use, but your library has exceeded the budget, they're just going to see a hold until next month, and then the title will go to that person. So that's how that works. In this case, in Comics Plus, the material is always available. And this is really fun because these users are oftentimes power users of series. And so it becomes very sticky for them that they can go in and find a lot of material, over 22,000 titles right now for one subscription fee annually. And then it's always available. And this actually is always growing, this collection as well. In our collection, there's a lot of educational titles that are really popular right now. So besides the comic books, graphic novels, and manga, and actually manga is really the fastest growing right now. There's also a lot of this used for school. And I know, as having one of my kids had difficulty reading, this is a great collection for adults with literary challenges or reluctant readers. And it's certainly an outreach to what sometimes is an underserved group of patrons, in that it can engage all kinds of readers. I know with my daughter actually went from a 3rd grade reading level to a senior in high school grade reading level when her visual processing connected with her brain. But it was hard to find for a 10-year-old, hard to find material that could engage her as a 10-year-old when she read at a 3rd grade level. And it's kind of insulting, actually. This is a collection that allows a reader like that to engage in books, to get them excited about books, where they can have a better reading experience because of the title. Here's a picture of our reports and the dashboard. Kate and I were talking, I think, before most of you came into the room. This is one of the things that we're developing right now. We've listened to libraries and heard them regarding what your primary interest is when you go into reports. We have twice the amount of data points in our reports than any other vendor, but sometimes they can be hard to get to. So what we're working on is how to give you the reports with the information that you really want right up front. A lot of that is your patron circ usage, your holds, your how many patrons engaged that month, and certainly what the circs are on your collection, what your patrons have circed on the CloudLink, and what CloudLink patrons have circed on your personal collection. If you would work with cloudLibrary, we do have a marketing kit that comes with the training and setup fee, and that includes things like bookmarks and postcards and easels to help the library engage the community with the cloudLibrary app. We also have a lot of marketing material digitally. I already talked about content transfers, but we're able to do that. We actually work side by side with Overdrive in many cases, and we also do content transfers from Overdrive, and we exist as a sole digital ebook and e-audiobook provider. We do them both, and I know that the duplicity in platforms can be a strain on budgets. I do want to mention that cloudLibrary, we're very much invested in this space. We're adding magazines shortly. We intend to go to videos. When COVID hit and we circed exponentially, like I mentioned, we actually put $500,000 into our servers and doubled our server capacity. We're also moving to a different platform right now for our digital development so that we can do more at the cloudLibrary level rather than asking Adobe to do technical upgrades for us. So both financially and also at cloudLibrary, or at Bibliotheca actually, we have a new CEO, and he brought in a handful of people with him, and they're all from the technical space. And we know that libraries are changing, and although Bibliotheca also does self-checks and gates and security for libraries, so we're a full library solutions provider, we are really pivoting and investing very highly in this segment. And Kate and I were talking about this at the beginning, that cloudLibrary is very responsive. So like has been mentioned about some concerns from certain libraries, to the extent that we can upgrade this and make the changes and make the developments, we are absolutely committed to doing that. Having said that, as technology is always in advancement, you know, there's always new things, not always, there's new things to install, our apps are upgrading, and so our usage points and suggestions. So we want to make sure that you know that we're very committed to this space, and to the degree that we can change and adapt to change, like we mentioned before, you know, that's not always possible, but to the degree that we can, we want to make sure that you know that we are a very strong player in this market and absolutely committed to this segment of the library. And that's that's the presentation. On this slide, there are some areas where you can go and view a little bit more about Bibliotheca and cloudLibrary.
Amy, would you talk a little bit about RB?
Yeah, sure. So RB Media is a very large company that is quite expansive, and prior to Overdrive's purchase of the RB Digital piece, which is the audiobooks and the specific material for public libraries, prior to that sale, we worked with RB Media to have all of that content available in cloudLibrary. So there's a strong message from Overdrive suggesting that there might be some priority with Overdrive to RB Digital, but that's really not true. The RB Digital material is available in cloudLibrary. So if it's a newer title, that would be a title that you can purchase. if it's a backlisted title or a little bit older, all of that is available on our pay-per-use platform. So what happened is our collection for pay-per-use was at about 130,000, and now it's 170,000 because all of that material is available by that pay-per-use level in the collection. And how we work is we actually bill 30 days after the Cirrus. So in the month of November, all of the books that have been checked out, ebooks or audiobooks on the pay-per-use collection, they would come the following month in December with any purchases that you had made. And then of course, annually, the platform is billed that same way. So just to bring up pricing, I'm very excited that Bibliotheca has extended some price breaks, especially for smaller libraries as this COVID continues and we're still dealing with this high digital demand and wanting to serve patrons. So I've been able to cut in half both our CloudLink fee and the platform fees at the lowest level of cloudLibrary, which enables new libraries to get started with us. One of the reasons why we want to have that lower onboarding cost is so that the library has some money to make some purchases for your library available in cloudLibrary. And the neat thing is you don't have to go too crazy that way, because if you enable the pay-per-use material to show, that can fill in the cracks of your collection when your patron goes into the app, because a lot of shelves can be built from that collection.
Okay, pay-per-use. So say I'm a patron and I'm in and I see that the title I want is available at my library. I don't know that it's pay-per-use, but I click on it, and then as it's downloading, I'm like, oh shoot, that isn't the one I wanted, and then I return it. That's still a cost to the library, correct?
So if the item is borrowed and downloaded, then it would be a circ.
Okay.
That does bring up another item, and that is if your patron has requested a title and it becomes available to them, the patron needs to grab it and download it or hit the function button to borrow it. Generally, our hold time is 3 days, and if the patron doesn't claim it digitally, then it goes back away, and then that would not be a circ.
Okay. You guys have any specific questions you want to ask Amy while we have just a nice small group? And feel free to unmute or use the chat. Jill, there you go. Talk again, Jill. We couldn't hear you.
Can't hear you, Jill.
I know it says that you're not muted.
Our audio is maybe not working.
Try using the space bar.
I'm going to go ahead and say a couple more things while Jill's trying to get her audio, and that is how our training is done. Our training is done in 4 modules. We do it virtually live with the library. So we're going to have an introduction to the platform. We do the content acquisition tool, then a live demo, and finally marketing and just a follow-up. Those are taped so that if a patron wants to, or I'm sorry, a staff member missed, for example, the app training, they can go and get that as a recording, or they're always ongoing. So the staff can jump in with another library at any time to get these trainings. I think they're really nice when they're done live because you can interact with the trainer. Also, the account setup time is somewhere between, we can get things done quickly, but our normal pace is 4 to 6 weeks to get a new account set up. That's both with the checkout module as well as with the digital content module.
How many libraries in Michigan Oh, and that was something else. So that cloud link, you're only able to share what libraries in Michigan have too. So the state of Michigan is where you would be able to draw from there.
Yep.
Shoot, I just had a great question. Darn it. And then the other thing pops in my head.
I did move the slide back to show you that these are the libraries. If you would have a library card, if you're near any of those libraries, you can download the Cloud Library app and actually go in and see what their collections are like. Every library is different. So we have some smaller libraries that don't have a lot of purchases and they use mainly the pay-per-use collection. And then of course we have huge libraries that purchase millions of dollars and bring very large collections. Once in a while we have a library that does not cloud link. It's not very often, but like the Boston Athenaeum and the Rhode Island Athenaeum, those are membership libraries, as well as like the New York Society Library. We have specialty libraries that don't link because they don't want to share their collection because they're very particular. Pretty much most of our other libraries cloud link because there's really not a disadvantage to the cloud link. We've been doing this for about 6 or 7 years since Cloud Library was built about 9 years ago. And Cloud Link really separates us from any other vendor because, you know, your patrons are getting material rather than seeing a 6-month wait time or a year wait time. They're seeing material that they can borrow now. And that's really satisfying for patrons. You know, we don't have a very long attention span for apps. Actually, it's 4 seconds. If we ask an app to do something, it doesn't respond within 4 seconds. That's what studies show. That's our satisfaction level is nope, don't like this. So we're working really hard to make sure that our app is sticky and that when the patron is looking for material, we can make it available to them in the app.
So just another comment on that. As you guys probably know, because I've talked about it before with Overdrive, this is something that Overdrive has been trying to do, and they rolled it out. It's called resource sharing, and they rolled it out, I think, in Suburban Co-op and then in Lakeland. But those two co-ops have the same ILS, and they were trying to use those first to see how it would work to share the Overdrive content. Then the RB thing happened, and then COVID hit, and so the last time I talked to our rep, she said, because I said, yeah, I would love for us to be able to do that too. When can we be on the list, and where are we on the list? And that, I think, has been put on hold a little bit right now. So Cloud Library has that, Overdrive doesn't. But the other question was, how many libraries in Michigan do you know that Cloud Library is their only digital platform, that they don't have Overdrive or they don't have Hoopla or Canopy? Do you know?
I do not know offhand.
Okay.
I do know that Kristen Shelley at East Lansing, I believe that we did an Overdrive transfer for them. And so they're only Cloud Library. We deal with many, many libraries across the country that only have Cloud Library. Absolutely. It depends also on the size of the shared pool in Overdrive and the size of the Cloud Link. So for example, many libraries are so invested in their Overdrive collections and maybe their pools are very large. Like in Iowa, there's one co-op that has like 94,000 titles in Iowa. If you're a small library in Iowa, even though we have a Cloud Link there, that's a hard one to let go of the Overdrive. We have other states where there's no reason to have 2 apps. Like Cloud Library, there's no deficit to getting rid of Overdrive. I just have a new customer yesterday that I'm setting up in Long Island, and there's no reason to have those platform fees. The costs are really a strain for a lot of libraries with Overdrive, and they basically do content transfers just to Cloud Library. We do that all day long. So either way works, and it's going to have something to do with the library and the state.
So Jill's question was, when you choose a language at the beginning, is all content in that language?
Not the content, but the directions and the headings and the app, the way the app renders. The content will be in the language that the library's purchased. That would be fabulous, wouldn't it? Everything would be translated right away.
I have a question. When you're talking about the pay-per-use, is there a way to set the limit so that, like, if my library did this, we can say you can't spend more than $6, so we don't get shot with like a $30 purchase that we weren't expecting?
Yep, and that's why I showed this slide. Great question, absolutely. And we have different price points for material. The average price point is $2.25. So that's what our average library sets our pay-per-use at. And let's say at your library that you had a lower budget, and your budget, when you first set this up, got maxed pretty quickly. What I would suggest to you is maybe moving from $2.25 down to $2 or down to I like to not go below $2 just because of the titles, and I can actually send a title list of what's in this collection. This is going to depend on your library and your patrons and specific usage. So these parameters can be moved very easily in CAT, and it allows you to set a dollar amount with a max title price. It also allows you to set the number of books that a patron can have checked out at one time, and the number of days that the books can be on loan, and a few things like that. Very easily to set. And actually, this is something we pay close attention to and we can move around. So if your budget isn't being spent, you can actually increase the amount of the titles, the title cost, and get more usage from this collection.
Does the pricing affect the authors you get? Like, can you get the James Patterson books for $2, or is he a 10 plus?
No, this is not going to be new releases, hot current titles. These are generally going to be backlisted titles, specific genres. This allows for, like, a lot of academic institutions will get a lot of strong pay-per-use from their English departments and that kind of thing. Again, this is a collection that I can actually send an Excel worksheet and you can look at and see what's in there.
So if you have the pay-per-use, if I set my price at $3, does that mean some of the titles that people would check out would be 99 cents and some would be $3? Or does that mean each time someone circulates, it would be $3?
You're going to make the collection that is $3 or less available to your patrons. So all of a sudden, everything at $3 and under is available. So out of 170,000 titles, at $3 or less, maybe only 80,000 titles fit that criteria. So it's still very broad, but it limits a little bit the number that that you can provide as a searchable title that they can borrow.
So for a James Patterson or Nora Roberts, I'm a librarian, I want to buy the latest. The price is set by the publisher, correct? So it would be the same cost with cloudLibrary as it would be with Overdrive.
Yes.
Same parameters too, like metered access would be the same. Okay.
Yep, all those things set by the publisher. And then basically, you know, we would have that in your collection. Again, your patrons can see that title. Your patrons can place holds on that title. If it's used in the cloud link at another library, if your patron comes in and wants it, it's going to come back to your patron first. So any kind of preference on that title, if you've purchased it, your patrons have. What your patrons also have, and Vicki, you came in late to this, is in the event that there's a title that your patron wants, but you don't own, it's sitting at another library. If their patrons aren't using it, it'll be viewable and searchable, and your patron can borrow it. It's invisible to the patron. They're just searching a title. They don't know where it's coming from, if it's coming from your library, from the cloud link, or from the pay-per-use collection. They just know they get the book. And at the end of the day, that's what really increases the circ at your library, because there's not so many patrons waiting for material. They're actually getting the material, reading it, returning it, And so it lowers the hold times and increases your return on investment in that your material is, getting these high usage rates. And then again, I just want to show the Vicky this one using
Yeah,
these.
I was here earlier. I just got disconnected and had to reconnect. So I saw most of it.
Yeah, so again, this is at the end of the day, what we're looking at is how can we increase circs on the material and make more material available that a small library can afford. So the two things, you can afford this huge collection, and secondly, how can we reduce the frustration of the patron on hold times? And both of those really are resolved with the platform. And this is how the platform was built. So like when Kate, you asked about a specific variation to ownership versus CloudLink, much of that is set into how our platform is built from the beginning. So we can't necessarily customize to each library in how that material is moving and circling, because that is actually fundamentally how the software works.
So pay per use will also be up in CloudLink.
Very good question. Pay per use is not in the CloudLink.
Okay, good.
Each library has the option to turn it on or off, and it becomes available by library. Each library would pay for that, and those titles do not become available in the CloudLink. So you would never pay for a circ on a library that's cloud linked somewhere else for their patron.
So magazines are coming. Comics, it's an add-on. Are comics part of the cloud link as well? Or no? Because we've paid for it, that's our content. That we can say we don't want to
actually, in that case, the comics are not independently owned. What you have is you buy a subscription. So for $1,000, for a small library, it's $1,150. So if your library decides to have that cloud there, that Comics Plus app, I'm just want to check my pricing here. I'm sure that's what it is, just over $1,000. You've purchased for those 22,000 titles to be always available, simultaneous use. You can have a robust response to that collection at no other cost. You paid one time $1,000, always available, always there.
And no other library can access it.
Right.
Gotcha. Anybody have any other questions?
Angela has one in chat.
Oh, sorry. Thanks, Vicki. Let me pull it up here. When our patron gets a book from the cloud link, is that circ stat count on the library that owns it, or is circ for us because it was our patron?
Yeah, really good question. The library gets to decide how you want to count that. In almost all cases, a library counts both. So both if your patron circs on another library's title, or if that patron from another library system borrows your book, they would each count as a circ in almost all cases. But again, that's up to the library.
Good question. I would count both.
Yeah, and that's how we see, that's how we're counting these aggregate numbers from library systems in our graphs.
Anybody else have questions? I will send you guys Amy's contact information.
Jill did have a question in chat again.
Oh, I missed the pricing, she said. We didn't really talk about pricing.
We didn't really talk about pricing. I did have a slide in my PowerPoint, I think when Kate and I talked originally. And the cool thing is that for many of you, because I know there's a lot of smaller libraries in your system, we have cut our fees. So there's a CloudLink fee, and typically that's $1,000. For smaller libraries now, I don't know how long we'll be doing this, I was able to offer it to my smaller libraries in Michigan and in Iowa until the end of the year. But I do believe I'll be able to provide that to your consortium if you would choose to work with cloudLibrary. So that would be $500. And then our lowest platform fee is $1,000, and that is half off right now. So that's $500. So those would be the two prices that you would have ongoing, is that platform fee and then the CloudLink fee. And depending on your service population, that's how we price. There is a one-time setup and training fee that includes those marketing kits. And again, I don't really want to say what that price is, because I think depending on how we worked with your system, in each case, we would work with each library individually. And so you would have ownership on your collection, you would have your own reports, you would have capabilities to do your own purchasing, and then we would have a pricing and arrangement with you personally, if that makes sense, with your library.
So would there be a co-op fee and an individual library fee then?
Kate and I haven't really talked about this.
Yeah.
My understanding is this would not have anything to do with co-op fees.
Okay.
Vicki, I would have a relationship with your library. cloudLibrary would partner with Harbor, what is your library?
Harbor Beach.
Harbor Beach.
Yes.
Fabulous. Didn't know there was that kind of beach in Michigan.
Yep.
Sounds like a Florida library. So we would have a relationship with you. So there would be a setup and training fee with you. You could decide if you want a CloudLink or not. And we would set the price based on your library's population. And we're getting very competitive on this because our goal is to grow the CloudLink in Michigan. And our goal is to have you purchase material for your patrons and then to have this sticky app. And then if we can work with the library, we want to do a follow library solution as well. If you would want to have that checkout module, or certainly any other Bibliotheca equipment, but we're really the only vendor that works with full library solutions. So our goal is to have a profitable library for your community, so libraries stick around. We love libraries, that's our whole reason for being, and to keep the library relevant with future trends and technology is where we're really strong right now. So yeah.
So for pricing, so CloudLink is 500, platform fee is 500. That's an annual fee.
That's an annual fee. And what you're just saying is our special, Kate. So I want to make sure that that doesn't get out to everybody because it does depend on service population. I was just saying that our lowest price level, we always have priced CloudLink at $1,000 and our lowest platform fee has always been $1,000. So right now we have those reductions and it would be a conversation that I would have with each library. So I'm a little hesitant to say that, but yes, that would be something that recurs annually. So that would, on the anniversary date, be billed to the library. And then month by month, you would get a bill the following month, one bill for any titles that you had purchased, as well as what the fees were on your pay-per-use collection. Again, you can protect that, protect your budget by setting a limit in ebooks and e-audiobooks. I just set up a library that only turned on e-audio for pay-per-use. I have a library that only does pay-per-use. They don't even buy titles. And then of course we have libraries that do only digital ebooks and e-audiobooks and don't use pay-per-use. So there's a lot of configurations based on what your library can afford and how we can structure the account. And again, we'll watch it every month and I can say, Vicki, people love the collection on pay-per-use. You're getting a ton of usage there. Do you want to move a little more of your funds to that pay-per-use collection? Or if it's too expensive, I'll say, let's lower the maximum price per title so that you can get a lot more usage, but it's not maxing out your budget by the 10th day of the month, for example.
So the service population breakdowns. So I'm assuming there's levels.
Yeah. So our lowest level for we have an under 10,000 level, and then we have a 20 to 40,000 level.
Okay.
And then 10 to 20,000 is kind of up in the air. And again, we just really need to look at the library, and a lot of times we'll give a price break for a transfer. So if you transfer your Overdrive collection, many times we'll waive the platform fee for year one. Also for small libraries, sometimes, and now I don't know if we'll do this at 500 and 500, but we'll waive the first year platform fee so that you can make purchases into your own collection if you don't already have a collection. So there are kind of a number of factors which makes it a little bit hard to just make a blanket answer there.
So you're saying these are like special prices right now. So next year, it would not renew at the same price, or it would?
Oh, here's the beauty of this. In almost every case, every partnership that we have with the library, we've never increased our prices.
Okay.
You can be confident that if you come in on a platform with us, we're not increasing fees all the time. However, this 50% off fee to get started, I don't know how long we'll do that. And I think, Kate, we can talk about if this would be something that your cooperative library members would have access to. But otherwise, that platform fee reoccurs annually at the same cost. If we were able to waive that year one because you didn't own your own collection, you need to buy titles. If we waived the platform fee the first year, we would indicate on the quote what we will bill the second year and the third year so that you can budget for those. And those, you would have a platform fee. That's how we operate. Another thing to know that differentiates us is that this quote is a partnership quote, and there's numbers on there so that you can budget for subsequent years, but it's not a contract. So at any time, if you have decided you no longer want to work with Cloud Library, and this separates us from other vendors as well, you can non-renew, and you do not need to continue with Cloud Library. We hope and intend that this is not the case, and we've worked very hard that this is not the case. But again, you're not locked into anything. Although, you do pay the platform fee for the year, and if you leave early, we don't return that, if that makes sense.
So, okay, you bring up another point. So if I decide I don't want to renew, nothing against you, Amy, but I don't want to renew, can I take that content that I've purchased and then say I still have Overdrive and switch it to Overdrive?
Absolutely.
My Advantage account in Overdrive. Okay. Okay.
So if we would go with Cloud Library, though, we're not talking about doing it as a full co-op. So if we transfer titles from Overdrive, the only ones we would transfer from Overdrive would be what is in our Advantage account.
Right. And for you guys that also had RB, you have that RB already in that collection already, whereas it's paid per use in Cloud Library, but you already have it at least through April. So yeah, I think based on the number of people that attended today, I don't think that the co-op, I don't know, I guess I'm feeling that there's not the interest in moving all content from Overdrive over. And I have to say, a number of libraries that I have talked to that have Hoopla, they have Overdrive, and they are looking at Cloud Library, or they may already have Cloud Library. So it's different platforms. It is not like comparing apples to apples at all. They're all different pricing, all different pros and cons, and it's what works for you and what works for your budget. But right now, Vicki, it doesn't seem like it'll be a co-op situation, so.
Yeah, I think the one thing we could do is in the event that there was a great deal of interest in the libraries, that we could move over the shared collection as like a container library, and that would be available to the libraries and to the CloudLink as a container. We didn't really talk, Kate, about how we could do that, but I think, a good strategy would be that if a library is interested in working with us, to reach out and we can work one-on-one. And then maybe have some economies of scale pricing if we worked on a larger scale with more libraries. But I feel like where we're really strong is with those smaller to the medium-sized libraries that are struggling with hold times, and they don't have the budget to be purchasing large collections. We're great with that because of these the functionality of the CloudLink, and then also adding that pay per use. We can accommodate because our platform fees are lower, the CloudLink fee is lower. For $1 million to have that available at $1,000, which is our standard CloudLink price for small libraries and large libraries across the country, Canada, To have that available, $1 million worth of content for $1,000 even, and especially for 500, that's really amazing. And the cool thing, Kate, about the 500, that reduced price, is right now, if a library comes on at $500 for a platform fee and $500 for a CloudLink fee, that's an anniversary. That's a locked in cost, and I've never seen that. So this is where this pricing right now is really neat, because a small library can get on, they can CloudLink, and we will bill at that reduced price. We've never done that before. If we make a price concession at the beginning to get a library on, it goes on to year 2 and 3 up to our regular tiered pricing. But right now I have really the go-ahead to help smaller libraries because of conditions and patrons and budgets. We want to make it affordable.
Kate, how many libraries do we have right now that are in overdrive?
44.
34?
40.
So 30, how many?
44.
So if we switched all 44 libraries to cloudLibrary and we each paid $1,000 a year, that's $44,000 in platform fees with no content. So right now, I think our deal as a co-op is better with Overdrive for their platform fee, because we share their platform fee.
Can you tell me, Kate, what their platform fee is, or are you not comfortable with that?
$6,000. So we
And we
spread
share
that
it
out.
between 44 libraries.
Yeah, so it's $230. $130. I think that's what it was.
Well, yeah, then that's not, then cloudLibrary needs to figure out how, and Kate and I didn't talk about this because she wanted the libraries to find out if cloudLibrary was something that you were even interested in before we talked about how we could do this at a cooperative level or at a consortium level. So certainly we don't want to be priced out. And then certainly I would want to change the conversation about how we could make it, if not as affordable, more affordable than what you have. Kate, is everybody, all the libraries are coming on individually in Overdrive for that price?
Say that again?
Is it the same arrangement that I had just suggested where each library is having their own arrangement with Overdrive, or are you providing that from like the consortium level?
So we do it at the consortium level. Each library has the opportunity to have an Advantage account where they can purchase their own titles and have that in their collection. And when Overdrive took RB, that's where Overdrive put that collection in the library's Advantage account. But then those are going to expire. And yeah, so that's how our situation is with Overdrive. So you mentioned this one-time setup fee too. Can you talk about how much that is?
Well, in most cases, with most of our libraries, it's 1,142. I did not bring that up because that would be something, if we worked with your consortium, that I would also make more competitive. The other thing is if you did the checkout module and the digital material, since we're doing 2 at once, we usually can bring that fee down.
I'm just gonna logging out.
Okay.
So I think then if it's a pricing thing, then Kate and I should talk, or I should talk with each one of your libraries individually to figure out how we could do this. If the interest is just kind of a one-off scenario, then it might look a little bit more like our traditional pricing. I think that actually right now our content, we actually have more content available via the CloudLink. Which, as I said, is constantly growing in most cases. We did have Kent leave. They were a large part of the CloudLink, and they are with Overdrive now. I'm really not ashamed to talk about that because I think that they're going to find that some of the things that they were hoping to resolve are not necessarily resolved in Overdrive. The thing with Kent, just to speak to that for a moment, is their population is so huge that proportionately when they had an issue or two with that size of population, the I guess it's not fair. I didn't deal with the account, but sometimes it seemed like the problems, although they were there in terms of the size of their patron base, almost seemed misrepresented, if that makes sense, because it's such a small percentage of times that like we would have an error in a situation that was concerning to them. It was a very, very small percentage, but their patron base is so huge, it presented itself as a larger issue, if you will. So once in a while we'll have a larger library come or go. In almost all cases, our links are constantly growing. In Michigan, that was kind of an outlier situation with Kent.
The value, the $1 million value, that's ebook and audiobook, correct?
Yes.
What's the average cost per ebook, average cost per audiobook? And then, so how many titles are actually in that cloud link? I mean, do you have a number of how many items are in there?
We do. We can kind of dig deep into that. In general, we use $35 to $40 for an average ebook cost, and we use e-audio. We use a little bit higher than that, maybe $55 up to $60. And
For like $85, $90. I hate how much those cost, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then copies and titles is a thing. So of the 30,000 copies, I'm not sure how many titles that represents, a smaller number of titles.
Okay.
I don't have the breakout on that.
Okay. No, that gives me something to look at, because that is something else that people will
Yeah, no, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. I just lost my thought there. Right now, that CloudLink is also valued a little bit lower, that $1 million, and that is because there's a lot of publisher incentives on pricing, as you know, from COVID. We do a lot of relationship management with the publishers, and we do have discounts, good discounts going with a lot of our publishers, and that has to do with Bibliotheca, like our relationship with them. And so that represents the value, the discounted value, if you will. So because some of the values are lower now due to price incentives.
Right. Does anybody else have any other questions? I don't want to take up any more of your time, you guys. If you do, you can always email me. I can email Amy. I will provide you with Amy's contact information too. So if you have specific questions, feel free to reach out to her too.
Yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to share this with you. And I would love to talk to the individual library again, especially on pricing, because, you know, our standard pricing with libraries, you know, may not pertain to your library, and especially smaller libraries where we really want to bring on board the libraries that want to work with us, strengthen that CloudLink in Michigan to make this material available for your patrons. And we don't want to be priced out. In most cases, we're not. Generally, if I work one-on-one with the library, we're 50% less than Overdrive or more. So I guess you have a good, looks like you have an attractive price for your co-op, but we would also like you to pay attention to, or if you would, give your attention to the value of Cloud Library in how, with the platform fees, what you have available to you, which would be the CloudLink and that pay-per-use, and our ability to move that content around so that you get the results, these results. You see this increase, you see your patrons are being, their searches are being satisfied, patron requests are being given, and yet the hold times are maintained. So there's a lot less frustration, it's a stickier app, and a much better relationship with the library. In addition, with that checkout module, a library that can't afford a self-check, they can get that contactless self-check with a smartphone. Nobody likes germs from a self-check machine, but we'll take our own smartphone germs. we don't mind our own germs. But that gives you a self-check option at a really reasonable price, much less than you would pay for a self-check machine. And then the app, now your Cloud Library is your full connection to the library, physical, digital, messaging, and becomes a great place. We have a lot of patrons they go into the Cloud Library app rather than a website or Facebook, because that's really how they're fully interacting remotely with the library. So on that note, thank you, Kate. Thank you, everybody. And I look forward to talking to any of you that may want to continue the discussion.
Thanks, Amy, so much.
Thank you.
Okay, talk to you later. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.